Hey everybody, Nathan Ronen, CFA here with another update. This is for anybody that's in the CFA program, CFA level 1, 2, 3 candidates, anybody contemplating entering the CFA journey, entering the CFA program and becoming a charter holder. Because as a sort of like quote unquote veteran of teaching CFA, there's changes constantly going on in the industry. And one of the questions that I constantly get all the time is my views, my opinions. What do I think about AI, meaning artificial intelligence, and its impact on the CFA program going forward? I think it's a very good question. It took me some time to put my thoughts together on this. I'm going to try to give you my insights on it, especially because last week, I had come across an article, I think it was on CNBC, and it was called AI Can Now Pass the Hardest Level of the CFA Exam in a Matter of Minutes. I thought it was a catchy title. I'll admit, I got snookered into reading it, and I was like, whoopee, okay. I think the idea was that it was able to pass the level 1 and 2 exams very easily, but because the level 3 has an essay component, at first, it was questionable, but now even the essays, AI can now pass the hardest level of the CFA exam, meaning level 3, in a matter of minutes. And I'm like, yeah, okay. How did they, give me more information? And when I read the article, there wasn't that much information provided. Again, there's no doubt that AI is going to have an impact on CFA test prep, on the CFA Institute's curriculum, on the grading process, and many other things. But to think that AI is going to be a be-all, end-all, and, it's going to completely put people 100% out of work. Listen, anything can happen. Excuse me. And I've heard this argument before with computers. When computers first came on, oh my God, computers are going to replace everybody. There's going to be no more secretaries, administrative assistants. Computers are going to do everything. People are just going to be sitting at home doing nothing. I don't see that today. I've also heard that with other inventions or creations along the line that, all of a sudden now we can do education online. So education online, there's going to be no more universities, no need to go to a brick and mortar building to sit down and or go to Harvard or go to Yale or go to any. There's still a lot of colleges out there in the United States. So a lot of times there's a lot of hoopla, and that's what drives people in. And again, likes and clicks and baiting and all that. But let's talk about AI, and especially a little bit of an answer to this, point about that the AI can now pass the hardest level of the CFA exam in just a matter of minutes. Look, that even if it were 100% true, that's great. That's interesting to know. But what you need to understand is AI is a tool, okay? AI is especially a tool in finance, and it should be treated like that. It should be treated as a complement, or it should be treated as some kind of adjunct and not a replacement. Like I just said, computers are supposed to help people. They're supposed to complement people's work. They're supposed to be used as a supplement, but it's not going to just completely replace people. Same thing with AI tools in finance. And I want to give you a couple of reasons why. Now, I am no AI guru. I don't want to say, yes, I've invested in AI stocks. Yes, I've done okay with them. Yes, I understand what AI is, but I'm no quote unquote expert in AI. But I do want to point out some, issues that you should be aware of as a candidate or even as a person, using AI. Is that when it comes to calculations, okay, we all know that math is a basic thing. 1 + 1 is 2, 3 × 2 is 6, and so on and so forth. But a lot of times, AI systems can actually mess up the calculations, especially if there are chaining steps that are involved. If there's a chain of steps or chaining steps, one step connects with the other is involved, AI can sometimes mess up. And that's really important if you are in the CFA program to understand that, because you're using or you're learning about discounted cash flow techniques. You're learning about all kinds of ways to estimate risk, all kinds of risk metrics, okay? There are parts of the level 3 program that talk about taking trading positions on the size of trades or the size of positions. All of these are going to be very big issues if AI systems mess up in the calculations that they perform, because there are chaining steps involved. Okay, that's important to keep in mind. Okay, because you can actually come up with wrong numbers, wrong answers, and make wrong investment decisions. So that's one major thing. Connected to that concept, or connected to that argument that AI can mess up calculations, you also have to understand that in many cases, AI tools will give you a number. They will give you an answer and a number, but it won't provide you with the reasoning or some kind of chain of the reasoning so that you can stress test it, or you can audit the results, or you can see how the AI path went and how they came up with the result that they gave you. Okay, that's a huge problem if there's a lot of money involved. If the stakes are high, that is going to be an issue. Okay, so a lot of times, again, AI will not provide you with all of those links or chains of events that include any kind of reasoning that was included, so that you can actually stress test it or audit or look it over or analyze it. Okay, and that's going to be an issue if there's a lot of money involved, or as we say, the stakes are kind of high. Okay, another thing that you need to keep in your mind about AI is that AI can many times, how do I say this? It can actually hide the assumptions that is in the data, or a lot of times they can hide all kinds of assumptions or premises or whatever that's buried in that data. So if you as a user don't look at every assumption, if you don't analyze every assumption, if you don't validate every assumption, like discount rates or measures of volatility or whatever, even like growth rates that you use in all these different models, you can end up with wrong outputs. What does that mean? GIGO. Just like you learned with Monte Carlo simulation in the CFA program. One of the problems with Monte Carlo simulation is GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Put bad inputs, get bad outputs, okay? So a lot of times if you don't have this ability to see what the AI is actually using, or the assumptions that are being made, or the premises that are being made that is in the data, you might end up with wrong outputs. Okay. Now, the other point that I'd like to make, is that when you're using AI, artificial intelligence, or AI tools, just like you did when you first used computers. You can't just use a set it and forget it strategy. The computer did it, the decision was made, the end. There has to be some component of human interaction, human oversight. Cannot be a set it and forget it strategy when you're implementing investment decisions. That's really important, because a lot of times what happens, a tail event, an unlikely situation that one would consider a tail event, and you learn about this in level 2 and level 3, can occur. Okay, and if that tail event occurs, or market conditions suddenly shift dramatically, okay, relying on AI tools from start to finish, okay, can also be a disaster. Okay, so you got to be involved all the way. There has to be some kind of human oversight. So in other words, what I'm getting to is almost the conclusion that AI is a good tool, but it has to be used in tandem with human oversight. Okay, so that would be another thing that comes to mind in terms of issues with, AI and its limitations. Okay, now again, don't forget, this is as of today in 2025. I'm expecting many amendments, changes, edifications, modifications, improvements in AI tools, in robotics, in whatever, all the different functions. So, again, this is as of the moment. So another thing you want to keep in mind is when AI makes a decision, okay, or AI makes a recommendation, and that recommendation is taken and it leads to losses, who is accountable for that loss? Is it you for just listening to the AI tool and taking it, or is it the AI tool itself? Okay. Especially if you can explain why, or if you have an understanding of why AI chose that particular path. Again, when we're making investment decisions, we don't make them in a vacuum. Okay, we consider all different kinds of paths or scenarios. Okay, that is what AI is helping us to do. But if it leads to losses, who's going to be, from an ethical or regulatory standpoint, responsible or accountable? especially if you're not able to explain why AI came up with that path. If you can, that's wonderful. But if you can't, that's going to be a problem too. Who's at fault there? So again, you need to keep all of these things in mind. Now, I am not bashing AI. I'm not saying that, AI is the be all end all, or that it's not going to be the be all end. Again, we have to see how things transpire. But what I think is really important is to understand that nothing by itself is a panacea, in other words, a cure-all. Okay, that you need to know that in this case, specifically with artificial intelligence, there has to be, as I just said earlier, some kind of human oversight. It cannot be a set it and forget it approach or a set it and forget it strategy. So again, people are talking about this in the industry. I don't know if I'm bringing up anything new. I think a lot of people have already said these kinds of things, especially people who are using AI on a daily basis. Okay, but these are, in my opinion, some of the things that need to be, kept in mind when you are, making these assumptions. For example, like the article says that you can now pass the CFA exam in 3 minutes just using AI. Okay, so keep this in mind. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. If you have any thoughts or ideas, feel free to, put them down. Again, if you have other concerns that you have or other things that you think I missed in terms of, the limitations or how AI should be used, happy to hear that too. I don't usually do these kinds of, discussions because I try to keep to what I know best, which is the CFA program and, how to study and prepare for it. But people do want to see other things. And at the same time, people want to get my opinion on different things going on in the industry, especially if it could impact CFA test prep, if it could impact the CFA curriculum, the grading process, and the like. So hope you enjoyed this. If you have anything, reach out to me at chalkandboard.org. And November results are coming out soon in October. So I hope you pass your level 1 or level 2 exam if you took it in August. If you take it in November. If you take it in November, good luck, and I hope you pass it. Bye-bye.